Hello, and welcome back to the Nourisher podcast. I feel like I'm going to say I'm excited for every episode because the first few ladies that I've sat down with are all very close friends of mine and play a large role in my life. But I am truly excited for today's conversation, looking forward to diving into today's topic. Kasey Long has been in my life for quite some time now as a friend, a leader, and a mentor. So I'm excited to add you to this lineup and to talk about something that's very important to us as women. I also am going to be interested because I feel like, do we have a different interest in book genres, would you say?
Yeah, probably. I think we do.
I want murder. Like, I want blood and mystery.
Nope.
What's your favorite?
They name it chick lit now. So it's more of the, like a rom-com for a movie, but it's more of the, like, love and will they, won't they, or...
You're a Colleen Hoover girl.
No. Every one of her books rip my heart out, and I don't love that. I love the opportunity for you to have someone fall deeply in love, like the first love, you know?
Like a Hallmark movie.
Like a Hallmark movie. But then I love me some thrillers. Not necessarily blood, but like who did it?
Sure.
And then a little bit of smut.
A little bit. I never got into the smut. I read 50 Shades of Grey in college. When everyone was talking about it, I heard a radio broadcast and they were saying, oh my gosh, when you find out what his thing is, it's going to blow your mind. And then I decided I'm just going to buy it and see what it's about. And once I found out, I was shooketh.
You didn't like it?
I just don't think I was going to be into that.
I don't think college Kasey would have been into smut and such because I was a pretty good kid in college. It was like later in life that I'm not as good of a kid. And so like smut's fun now, I guess.
Sure. I get it.
Brian calls it my book porn. He's accurate.
It is what it is. No, I still come to you for book recommendations sometime. I'm like, hey, this is what I read and I need something along these same lines. What do you recommend?
Mm-hmm.
I tried joining Goodreads.
No.
You and Z are ridiculous when it comes to updates on Goodreads.
But Goodreads, I use that because I'm a 3. So it's like marking off the list. How quickly did I get it done? And then that tracks how many I do a year. And so it's the challenge of how far am I into it? I really use Goodreads to take the ratings. Because if it's below a 3.7, I'm probably not picking up the book. Because I typically am a person that's going to go with most others. Sometimes not so much. But so if it's not rated well, I'm not even going to pick it up.
You don't think ratings are relative at all? They ring true most of the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Truly. And I normally don't even read the reviews because I don't want a book spoiled. I don't read the jacket of a book. Like even in our book club, they tell you the summary of the book of what we're going to read before we read it. But I make sure not really pay attention and then forget it and like allow some time before I read the book because I want every book experience to be almost a complete surprise.
There's mystery in there.
There's mystery.
But I also don't like to be disappointed.
Yeah, well, that's when you do not finish. DNF.
There's a label for it.
There's a label for it. And I even have a shelf on my Goodreads called DNF. If I get through 100 pages and I have found myself taking way too long to get to 100 pages, or it hasn't grabbed me, or I don't enjoy the read, I don't care what's really going to happen, I just close it and move on.
How long does it usually take you to read a book?
Depending on what's going on in the rest of my life. It probably takes me about 4, maybe 5 days on a typical book.
My goodness. Yeah. I just was not given that love for reading.
Yeah.
I think AR ruined that for me, the AR program in school.
Yeah. I'm too old for AR.
So when I was in elementary school, I was a reader. Mm-hmm. My first few books that I read for the AR program in like 3rd grade was Harry Potter, Holes, some really big books. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I got a social life. My social butterfly kicked in and I'm like, I don't care about this. I'll read Hank the Cowdog for 1.5 points. I don't care.
But you still had to have those points because you're a 3 too.
Exactly. One of these days we're going to get back on here and talk about Enneagram.
Mm-hmm.
is ever since you taught me about Enneagram, I tell everyone. So how many official book clubs are you in?
Officially, I'm in 2, including Facebook, probably close to 10. Yes, I'm in Facebook book clubs. Isn't that fun?
I kind of forgot that that's even an option.
It is.
One year I read Girl Wash Your Face.
Yeah.
And I was so inspired and moved by that book. And I started a Facebook group to do a book club.
You did?
Did I follow through on that?
That makes me so happy.
No, I didn't. I posted a couple of discussion questions that I just wasn't getting the response that I wanted. Maybe it's just because I didn't find my people that truly belonged in that group. But yeah, I kind of forgot you could do Facebook group.
I really joined it when we were in COVID. And so we would do Zoom Facebook groups. And like this group became such a thing and we're all across the country. We've brought some authors onto our Zoom.
Stop.
I'm serious. We've gotten some authors. They're not big ones like Colleen Hoover, but still, it's really fun to hear different people's opinion across the country, because right here, I'm almost in a vacuum bubble of people that think and talk and walk like me here. But to have all of these people that have been, nature versus nurture in their part of the country is really fun to hear their take on books. And then you can be as involved as you want to be or not. There are opportunities to keep everyone involved. So it's always around books. So you're sharing memes, or we're doing polls, or we're doing this or that book edition. But I think the beauty of book club for me, and going back to your point about you started and didn't have the right people, I wouldn't say that any of my best friends I would look at and say, come be in this book club with me. Because not all my best friends are big, heavy readers like I am. Or have the time to dedicate to reading. So my book clubs have become people that are people interested in reading books and getting together. Some of them have become really, really good friends of mine. We text almost every day. But like there's a spot reserved in our book club for me to bring in a friend. And I haven't really found that person that I think would want to come. 1 and 2, we read 2 books a month in this book club. So
I know, I see y'all's posts. Y'all are intense.
We are intense.
And every time I see it, I'm like, let me save this post so I can remember what to read next. I know I'll never be invited.
I love you no less. But, you don't want to set anyone up for failure to say, hey, come and be a part of my book club, and then them not be able to read. Because I never want to make someone feel bad about not reading. I read some in high school. I didn't read in college. And then later in life, I started reading. And I was reading on my Kindle. Brandon got me a Kindle for Christmas. And my kids were just starting at the age where they were like, I want to be on your tablet. And I'm like, oh, it's not a tablet. It's a book. And so I put down my Kindle and we got up and went to the library, and I got a library card, and we go almost every Saturday ever since. And that was 2019.
I love that. And I love that you said that it's not for everybody, even your best of friends.
Mm-hmm.
I love that it's kind of like, this is your thing that feeds that creative side or that imagination of yours, because we all have to have those types of things, I think, to keep ourselves sane.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that you touched on that, because I definitely have friends who are not going to be interested in anything I'm interested in or the same things.
Yeah.
And now you're instilling that in your kids, and your kids, I know, have a broad imagination.
Quite. We go to the library and they can check out as many books as they want. And one week we went to 2 libraries because she wanted a specific book and it was at a different location. We got 49 books. The max you can check out in the library at one time is 50.
You touched on this a little bit, but not only do you love books, so joining a book club is a given, right? It kind of got you out of your comfort zone because you weren't taking your best friends with you. Were you uncomfortable getting into an environment where you weren't surrounded by your normal people?
I think what was hard about it in the beginning is I worked with one of them prior. And so I knew her on a certain level. And then it was her friend that came in and we formed our 3. I didn't know him very well. I did know him. But discussing books and your opinions before you really know where people stand in life on multiple topics. So you're just kind of sitting there making sure, number one, you don't sound stupid. 'Cause you don't want to sound stupid to people you don't know, but then being willing to kind of talk about certain books, or even be like, just saying, this was your book this month and I really hated it. And I'm sorry, because I know you want everyone to love every book you pick, because we all do, but they suck sometimes. And the good thing is we've come far enough now in our book club that we're okay to just say, man, this one sucks. And we even talk about it in the in-between. And I'm so mad because we're almost taking the magic out of that reveal of, did you love it? Did you not love it? Because we're talking about it. And I'm reading one right now and I'm so bored, but it's book club, so I'm going to get through it. I want to, though, because you want to be kind enough to the person who chose the book because they loved the book, so you don't want to poo-poo on it. I've poo-pooed on one specifically, and I poo-poo on it all the time. Every time we bring up books we don't like, I bring that one up.
You're like, just so you know, this is always in the back of my mind.
But I think the funny thing about it is I will never forget that book. So did the author succeed?
Yeah, I think so.
I do too. Because I rated it a 1 star on Goodreads, but oof, I will be able to talk about that book it will stay with me forever.
And your online book clubs, you've probably met some really cool people, especially authors, but like you said, from around the world. Do you only talk to them when you guys do book club associated things, or have you made any, I guess, more personal connections with any of those people?
Not really. I know that some of them have, and they've met up. A lot of them are East Coast, though. I think what I love is the opportunity to give books to people here that I know. Like, I want to be everyone's personal librarian. I really do. I mean, I have a library in my front yard. I've got a library in my house. I have a book stamp and a book says from the library of Kasey Bell Long. I find books for my dad too, because he's become more of a reader now that he's retired. Or there's a friend of mine that every time I finish a book, I just go put it on her porch. I'm like, you have to read this.
I do love that. If a book really touches my heart, and I know I read a couple of Lisa TerKeurst's books over the past year, and whenever someone mentions something that has to do with that topic, I'm like, you have to read this book. It was a game changer for me. So I recommend them to people. So what we read is a gift to people in so many ways.
Yes. It's ever expanding and abounding. And when you're spreading knowledge, right?
Yeah, for sure. That kind of leads into the fact that you're making new friends in these book clubs, and it allows you another outlet. It's also introducing you to new people. And that's something that I know you, as my mentor, in a sense, you've always talked to me about the importance of getting outside your comfort zone, networking, and growing. It's just something that I think has fallen to the wayside, especially with a newer generation coming in. And not to say that they don't want to do that. I think they just don't know how. Do you feel like something as simple as a book club has helped you professionally or personally as far as building a broader network?
Yes, in some ways. The friends in my small book club, we have become such good friends that we know about each other's lives and about each other's friends. And then we've met, and then we've met their spouses. And then it's Amarillo, so it's just this tiny, big town. I was at a luncheon the other day, and someone was like asking me about my book club because so-and-so, so-and-so, and Facebook. And I love it. I love that people know me by books and reading. I think it's fun. Professionally, maybe not yet. I love talking about books, so I don't care if I'm in a work setting or not. But sometimes it's just we're here and we're here.
Sure.
It's two separate things that you keep separate sometimes.
Well, and I've mentioned before, if it weren't for some of the women that I do consider mentors and friends, that I wouldn't have some of the opportunities afforded to me had I not branched out and met new people. Something like a book club, when I joined Junior League, I knew no one. I think I had just met you because I remember seeing your name on the list as president-elect. And I said, wait, you're in Junior League? And you're Madam President or soon to be? I think there's something to be said for joining civic groups and joining groups of like-minded people, because that was the whole idea behind joining that organization. Was I enjoyed volunteerism and I wanted to find people who also enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it made me some of the best friends I have today. I think that's what's really wild, is when you come together over a common interest. I have friends who are in their 50s. I have friends who have large families or are in different professions. And then I get opportunities that I would not have received professionally because we share a common interest and they got to know me for who I really am or for something that I'm interested in.
I could not speak more to the power of networking and knowing people. I didn't grow up here, but I went to WT, and just yesterday someone asked me if I knew someone, and I said, I've known them since they were 18 years old in college. But then the other day I met a donor for the first time, and we were talking about something about BizTown, and he was like, oh yeah, my wife donated some Hot Wheels to BizTown. And I was like, wait, is your wife so-and-so? And he's like, how do you know that? I said, I've known her since before I was married. Like, we joined junior league together. I didn't even know his last name yet. And so that just endeared that potential continued supporter of my job, because I've known his wife for a very long time. So it's just ever expanding how when you meet someone and then you meet others and then you're involved. And I think you said it right. You're meeting people across every different walk of life, regardless of maybe your income or your industry or your friend group outside of it. The opportunity to walk into a room and know people or know people that know people or have conversations. I really saw that very first displayed to me in Amarillo in my first big girl job. I worked for Joe Bob McCartney. He was very, very interested in the revitalization of downtown. That was before they were really doing anything big yet. And he introduced me to Beth Duke over at Center City. And of course, Beth is just the who knows who Rolodex of Amarillo. And that's just who she was. Oh, this is my friend Kasey. Meet her and meet her. You know, it was just wonderful to walk in a room and know Beth, and her always made you feel like you were her friend, because you were, and I still have been. We see each other. We went to coffee not too long ago, and I hadn't talked to her in years, but I just really saw on display networking and knowing people and getting involved in the community is such an important part of your ability to want to stay and stay connected. Like, that's what college is about. That's why they're always pushing organizations on people. Because when you get involved on campus, besides just your job, you're actually going to create a student in their retention. You're going to graduate because you have a reason, and it's the people. And so that was one of the big things that when I worked at WT was get involved. Go find something to do. Even get a job on campus, because you're just going to meet people. And then that has very much helped me in my professional life and my social life.
I feel like that's something I kind of missed out on, and maybe to my own fault. But, you know, I went to Texas Tech and it's so much larger than WT. And I had a conversation yesterday with a friend who went to WT and met pretty much everyone she knows there. She got involved and continued to meet new people and take on new things. And for me, you know, I was so head down, stayed in my circle. I hung out with all the other small town kids because it was comforting. And I think I was so out of my comfort zone at Tech that I was very afraid to meet new people. You know, even in my job, when we try to connect interns, we're trying to connect them not only to one another so they feel more comfortable. It is important for our retention to be connected to people who can provide all sorts of different information and conversations and opportunity for you, because I want them to meet a Beth Duke. I want them to meet all of these different people in different professions and in different walks of life, because there's just so many different ways we can connect to those people, regardless of where we are in life.
Mhm.
You and I are very different. Our lifestyles are different, but I always enjoy our conversations. And I feel like it's also allowed me to get to know you on a different level and vice versa, to be able to give people a glimpse into who we are, because it opens different doors. Because you and I are involved in each other's lives, you mention my name in rooms and in conversations where it might provide me an opportunity or introduce me to yet another connection. Sometimes people don't see networking as beyond what it can do for you professionally.
Yeah.
When you join things and clubs and groups with like-minded people, you're gaining so much more than just another contact in your phone.
Yes. I think the funnest thing is to learn about people and where they're from or what their life experience is, like really diving into a connection if you hit it off. I think you and I just hit it off because we are similar. Our personalities are similar in that we do love to be social and we love to know people and we love to be involved and get to meet more people. And we have a heart for nonprofit and our community. I think that that's what I love most about getting to know new people. And of course, because that's my personality, but I love to know new people. I mean, I almost want to collect friends. And I mean, everyone's like, you have 50 best friends. And I'm like, well, I kind of do. And maybe there are some that are super close best friends, but then a lot of my friends are friends in certain situations, like certain social groups, or like I'm still really good friends with two girls from high school, or I have best friends in my profession. I acquire friends and I love them because I love the connection between people and learning them, and then being able to be myself with someone that gets me and I get them, and just being like, this happened. This really sucks. And can we go to coffee and just let me cry for a minute? And they do, or just celebrating those things. And also, I really want to create that for my children. I grew up in a small town like you. So every friend of mine, I knew their parents, I knew the grandparents, I knew where they lived. I knew everything about them and they did me. A lot of us aren't friends now, but because that was a natural thing. But my kids, we've created this friend group and everyone has kids in this group. And so our kids are going to be able to be raised and grow up in this friend group that we hope that they can go to those other parents or have these friends in all these different grades that go to different high schools and middle schools, and that they feel comfortable. I'm trying to raise confident leaders, and my kids are extroverts, so it helps. But knowing people is just going to always help those kids and help them in school and help them be involved. And that's why I think networking, regardless of where it goes, does it stay professional? Does it go social into that social networking? And then do they become close friends? It's fulfilling in my life. It fills me. But then I really have to go home and recharge by myself sometimes too. And I think that's where the books come back in.
It kind of gives you the best of both worlds, because I know as a fellow extrovert, sometimes we get drained. I mean, yes, I am energized by being around other people, but it is important for us to take those breaks sometimes. And so the book club situation, it really is the best of both worlds. It forces you to do both, but it still ultimately is connecting you to other people.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it like that.
Worldwide too. Goodness.
Worldwide.
Still, I'm mind blown. I love that.
It's so fun.
I'm gonna be a silent book club participant.
Yeah.
In a global book club.
I invited a girl that I don't know very well. I know where she works. I know her name. I know her mom because I happened to meet her mom random, right? But it's Amarillo. And I knew that she loved books, and we're not friends really. But I invited her to one of my Facebook book clubs because I felt like we were so much alike that she would enjoy. And she's in there and she's more active than I am. And it's really fun to see that you're connecting people to other people. And that's what I always like to do.
You didn't know her very well, but you connected her to something that she enjoys and that's important to her and fuels her creativity. I think there's so much to be said for simply just meeting people. And then where that can lead and then what it turns into for them later on or you later on. So there was a girl who reached out to me a few months ago, and she and I do not know each other. We know each other in passing. I didn't have her number and she didn't have mine, but she texted me and said, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I'd really love to get to know more about you. Is there a chance that we could go to lunch or have coffee?" First of all, the impact that that had on me, because sometimes I just think, wow, I must be really annoying.
You are not. Stop.
The fact that someone reached out, I was like, one, good for her for trying to, it's bold, and nobody does that. And, you know, there are some people who I see in the community, I like, I want to be friends with them, but I don't put in the effort or I never reach out, you know? And so I was thinking, one, good for this person for doing that and being bold and taking the first step and the initiative to reach out. But two, she wasn't trying to get to know me for professional reasons, because we're not at all in the same industry. And I don't think there was an agenda behind that meeting. It was truly just a, hey, I want to get to know you.
Yeah.
And she inspired me to do that, because I do want to know more people. Like you said, I want a library of friends.
Yeah.
And so I haven't done it, but I think in 2025, that's definitely something I want to try to do. And maybe I start with an attainable goal of just one person.
Yeah.
There's one person that comes to mind right now, and I'm like, I am going to make them my friend.
I was going to ask, do you have a list? That's awesome. Okay, so how do you do that? How are you going to almost endear yourself to them, to like connection?
Okay, so again, I think it goes back to what we're talking about overall, because I do know this person.
Okay.
We are involved in a professional manner.
Okay.
So we've already had business meetings that have led into more personal conversations.
Okay.
And I understand somebody has to open that door for you, or you have to open, you know, they have to feel like they're comfortable with you. So I think it's definitely not going to work every time. But when we had this business meeting, we got into a conversation and there was a light bulb that went off in my head, and I go, oh, we're going to be friends. I think it's just a matter of reaching out and being vulnerable by saying, hey, I really enjoyed our side conversation when we met the other day, and I'd really like to learn more about you, just like this other girl did with me.
Right.
You know, I preach being vulnerable to everyone. And I think that's why I've been somewhat successful in getting people to open up to me, is because I'm not afraid to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to tell people about my experiences and what I've been through, because I feel like there's connection in that, whether people have similar personalities or not. And so I know I've been able to make friends and just build those connections with people simply by me just sharing what my experience is.
Yeah.
And so I think I've been motivated to reach out and just use my vulnerability and not be so polished and professional sometimes. You know, obviously I'm not going to be like, hey girl, let's go get lit.
Well, and I think that is, you're fighting your natural 3 in being willing to be vulnerable, because 3s just want people to see them as this put together person that they want to be involved with, but also 3s want to talk about themselves to anyone that will listen. So your podcast is probably going to have a lot of 3s on it. Yes, I'll go on there and talk about myself. Thank you very much. But you're fighting yourself to want to break that your own barrier to tell people, but that's where real connection begins. And so it's hard for a 3.
I agree. I think a lot of the women that I'm sitting down with are very similar in a sense that we do want to come on. We do want to talk about ourselves in a sense, but it allows them to be vulnerable. So therefore, if someone is listening to this podcast and maybe they know you on a surface level, but they get to know you through this different lens, they might connect with that. And then they might, like we're talking about, take that first step to say, hey, I heard you on the podcast talk about book club or talk about being a mom, and reach out to you and say, I would really love to pick your brain on raising children. Or
Right. If you're listening to this and you want to be my friend, call me.
Kasey loves friends.
I love friends.
I think what's really great about women is we have the ability to connect on deeper levels, and we want to connect on deeper levels. Whether people say it or not, they want people to know them and truly know them. So I think that's how I'm going to lead off with that conversation.
I think they'll be flattered, just like you were flattered with the person that reached out to you. The thing with friends and why I have so many is because for me, I want them to know that I'm thinking about them. So like randomly you'll get a text from me and it's like, hey, I was thinking about you today, or hey, I love you. Or like when they're telling me something and we're talking, I try to be mindful enough to listen. I've really, really been working on my listening skills because I'm a great talker. I need to work on my listening skills. I will put a reminder in my calendar because I live by my calendar. And so I put it in there. I normally put it in there the day before or maybe the day of, depending what it is, to remind myself to reach back out to them about the thing that's going to happen. Like I have a friend that has a really big thing about to happen, and she's had a lot of trepidation about it. And so I put it in my phone for 2 days because I'm not going to remember. And I love her and I value our friendship, but I'm not going to remember. So I need to put a reminder to myself. So that's been really great in keeping those connections of friends.
I love that you do that, because even if you're not super close with someone, if they felt safe enough to share something big that's happening in their life with you, one, you broke the barrier. But being a good steward of our connections and relationships is hard, and it takes work, and it takes being intentional. So I love that you do that. And now you've just given me an idea.
Yeah. I realized that my friend and I would text on Saturday mornings, and sometimes that would turn into a phone call. And then it kind of became a phone call. And now if we don't call each other on a Saturday, it's like, oh, wait, hang on. And we always call each other before the day starts. Like we're both probably still laying in bed, but we just pick up the phone and call and just connect. I'm really glad I have that with her because I'm not always great about texting and following up and checking in, and I want to. But it's more on if I can think about it. But that phone call, we talked this morning, I talked on the way here, and it was just so good to connect with her and be like, okay, what are we doing? What's going on? When am I going to see you again? And we don't get to see each other because we're so busy, but creating routines within friendship. Like I have another friend that somehow, for some reason, we both just started going to Hummers on Thursdays as a family. And so then now it's a thing. We've been on and off of it, but Thursdays, you're probably going to catch us at Hummers. And the kids are like, it's Thursday. Are we going to Hummers with our friends? And sometimes you're like, heck yeah. And other times I'm like, no, we got this going on, or they've got this. But just the routine of that in your friendships, because where I am and where you're getting and continuing to be too is it's so busy and you don't have the time. So those networking opportunities are fun to go and meet people. But it's what's that next step? If you really did connect with that person somewhere, like, how are you going to connect again? Or are we just going to stay surface and see each other when we're out and around?
Right. I'm like you. I want to have a library of friends, but I don't want surface level friends. I want them to feel comfortable texting me and saying, or if I say, hey, how was your day? I want them to say, I'm struggling today, but here we are. We're good. Just even that practice of you putting things in your calendar and being more intentional with your friendships. I think it's amazing how different connections and different people and our friends stretch us and challenge us in just the simplest ways, because you want to make an effort to reach out to people and make them feel seen and loved and valued. And so I love that, because I feel like that would be a challenge for me, and they don't even realize that they're doing that for me. Connections in general are just so good for us. They're good for our soul and they're good for our profession. And
well, I've been sitting here trying to think how I met you. I guess it was YPU.
yes,
But how did you get involved in YPU? Who brought you in?
I think it was Liz.
Okay.
Liz and I have known each other since she was in high school and I was in junior high.
Okay.
And so she was somebody that I looked up to just because she got involved in a leadership level in nonprofits from a very early age. And I've always looked up to her.
She's an amazing person.
Yes. But even from then, right, we met when I was 13 and she was a cheerleader. I was a cheerleader, junior high and high school. The very first conversation that I remember having with her where I thought we're going to be friends, she asked me, are you going to try out for high school cheerleader? And she was leaving. She was graduating. And so she asked me if I was going to. And I said, I don't know. Should I? I'm really nervous. Again, I'm a baby. And she's like, absolutely, you should. Like, why would you not? And she pushed me and encouraged me to try out for high school cheerleader, which is one of the things that I absolutely had a blast doing in high school. It was my favorite.
Yeah.
And gosh, my connection with her started so surface level.
She was probably just being kind, right? And it really meant something to you.
And she pushed me. And now she's one of my good friends to this day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Liz is the reason I got involved in YPU. I had just gotten into my professional career in nonprofit fundraising. I had graduated college. I got my first job in donor relations and I wanted to get connected. And I told her, I just don't know a whole lot of people and I need to get connected. And so she brought me into YPU where I met you and Chris and a lot of other people who I still talk to on a regular basis.
That was such a fun group. And then I was like, Kaylor, come work with me at United Way.
She stole me.
I did. And we had a wonderful time in COVID. But, talking about friendships in COVID, you had to be creative with your friendships and how were you going to be friends? So a lot of my friends, we did that. Oh, house party. Is that what that app was called?
Yes.
We did it with Ryan's family and we really hadn't been connected with them because Ryan and I were living in our little baby, we had little babies, Bubble and friend groups. We would have driveway parties and Ryan and I had moved into our house into that neighborhood in 18 and Owen is 18 months. So we weren't doing a lot. We weren't staying out. We weren't going out. He was too young for us to be anywhere. And so we really didn't know this group, even though we knew them, we weren't hanging out. And then they invited us to their driveway parties. And so we all go sit out and bring our chairs and donuts and during COVID and sit in a driveway. And one of the couples is now our very best friends. And so it's really interesting how COVID truly either made or break a lot of things in a lot of people's social circles.
Oh, for sure.
It's almost like there's going to be this micro generation of COVID kids. Olivia's going to be one of those because it really shaped Olivia. She was in kinder, so she really doesn't remember it. Or Owen or the younger kids during COVID. We all have this joke in our friend group that they're like, I'll go home because they were so used to being at home with their parents all the time and they weren't out socially. That group is going to be so interesting to see how that group of people, that just micro group, are going to grow in what they are when they're older. When you're looking at generations, when you're looking at Gen Z or millennials or boomers or X, right? But this tiny group, what are they going to do? And maybe they're the people who do have that core group of friends and they're like, I love you, but I just don't want to, maybe we raised a whole bunch of introverts.
Yeah.
On accident.
That's a good point. I mean, I'm glad that they have you because you do value connections and networking so much. So I think your kids might not have as big of a problem.
Mine won't.
But I guarantee there will be several children who don't feel comfortable going and being around people, or they build connections through the internet.
Yeah.
Which is getting to know each other through our chat room's still a thing. Am I dating myself?
I'm not in a chat room, I'll tell you that.
When I tell the kids, when I teach junior achievement, some of the things I say, you can just tell they're like, what?
Makes no sense.
Or when I ask high school seniors about eBay, and they're like, nobody uses that. That's not a thing.
I was talking to someone the other day, and I told them that back years ago, I said, before you had a cell phone or a cell phone plan, you could attach your credit card that was on your phone bill to make purchases on the internet. Because at that time, like, your phone was almost your internet browser. And it just blew their mind. I was like, I know that's crazy, but you made purchases through your phone bill.
Yeah.
If that's how you so choose. I didn't, but I remember that. And they're like, what? And I'm like, oh, I'm so old. Like, don't text me till after 9 p.m. Calls are free.
I had to be all tell my circle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And my grandpa, who paid for my cell phone bill, was saying you can't call people until after 7 p.m. But I lived in a small town, so we were walking around town anyway. We weren't calling each other. And I had a landline to use instead. Mm-hmm. So I tied up the landline and pissed my parents off multiple times. But so I think it's just interesting because, you know, these kids will play Xbox or they'll play games on the internet, and they're playing with people from all over the country or the world. So they are connecting with people, mm-hmm. but it will always be very surface level, you know, unless I mean, they can build stronger connections. I'm sure it's just
that just makes me nervous
differently.
Though. As a mom of young kids, that makes me nervous.
I'm sure. Yeah.
It's very interesting because you can connect with someone on something that you have in common with them.
Right. That's true. I think, you know, we can learn a lot from them and vice versa.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to teach your kids so much about building valuable connections and how it can benefit you in your life overall.
And they're teaching me about Skibbity, Ohio, Skibbity toilet. Have you heard this?
I heard Skibbity again, their junior achievement. I gave them the opportunity to name their team, and they said Skibbity. And I had to have them, like, I had to ask them how to spell it. And I felt so ridiculous.
Yeah. I was talking to a kid the other day, and they didn't know me, and he said something like that, Skibbity toilet and Riz and something. And I said, oh, you're being so Ohio right now. And he fell out of his chair. I'm like, yeah, I have a fifth grader. I know these things. I don't. I absolutely do not. But, you know, it's like most of it's confidence, right?
I feel like I go in blind. At least you have kids who can teach you some things about today's lingo. And I go in and I say stupid things all the time. Mm-hmm. And they're like, no one says that. Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate you so much in so many ways. I know you know that, but I'm so grateful for you and your friendship and what you do in our community. I appreciate you so much and look up to you so much. And I'm glad that we were able to break through the barrier and become friends, because I come to you with a lot. I ask for your advice a lot, and I value that we have that connection and that relationship.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad that we met. And I'm so proud of you for doing this. It's so cool. I love it.
Well, if you need a mic, you know where to find me.
Do I?
And we are going to do an Enneagram episode. We have to.
You have to.
Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up with a couple of questions.
Okay. Ooh.
On the spot.
Okay. All right.
Which I hate. I hate when people do this to me, so sorry.
I like it. Let's talk more about myself, please.
Okay. So what is one thing that nobody or maybe most people might not know about you?
Mm.
And then the second part of that is 3 women who you look up to or that inspire you. And they can be people you know personally, people in our community, people outside of it. The possibilities are endless.
Okay. I've got deep-seated mommy issues. I don't know if most people know that. My mom and I had a very, very rough relationship, but I think it's because she wasn't trying for me to be a perfectionist and strive, but it came off that way and it felt that way. And so I just felt like I was never good enough or was never doing what I should have done. So I really try really hard to be Olivia's mom always, but then be able to create that connection so that I can be her friend later in life. I find myself acting like my mom sometimes. I have to be like, Ryan, you got to step in because I feel it. I feel it. So Definitely have some real big mommy issues.
Okay, pause. I love that that was your answer because most people are going to say, I've never been skiing, which is my answer.
I'll get a better one, Kaylee.
I know, but yeah, no, I love that that was your answer because that's a real answer.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it is one of those things that you don't openly talk about. So good for you.
Yeah. No, I don't like talking about it because it just brings up so much. I mean, but it brings up all the things that I refuse to talk about. Right. So then every time I talk about it, I kind of get emotional because it's like, well, it's something that I haven't really talked about. So I don't like to talk about because I get emotional, but I haven't talked about it enough so that I don't get emotional. I don't know. It's just a cycle. But
I get it. I totally get it. You and I, we have similar experiences in that sense. So I totally get it. But thank you for that answer. That was a real answer. So I love that.
Oh, okay. So three women specifically that I look up to, I would have to say, I mean, really, and I already talked about her, but Beth Duke, I have always appreciated who she was as a person and then what she's done for this community and that she stayed in that role forever. She's been at Center City for a very long time, but it's her passion. She lives that. That's not just her job. And so Beth, if you ever retire, I would love to have a conversation about your job. Hopefully Beth will listen to this because I feel like that's like goals right there. A friend that I went to high school with, and we were friends in high school. We hung out and then we went to college together, but we were never in college together. And then she moved back to Lubbock and we'd always stayed friends. I was in her wedding. I went to the hospital when she had her baby, but we didn't really connect often. And we've just really connected in the past 3 years, I think. She's become one of my people that I call. Like I had something really, really awful going on. And I didn't want to tell anybody because, you're embarrassed about this stuff. And sometimes you don't want to be vulnerable. But it's also like, who can I tell this to so that they don't judge all of the people that are in this story that I've got? Because you don't want to create that with people. So there are certain people that you tell certain things to, right? And I called her and she was at work and I was like, I just have to tell you this. I have to tell someone and this is it. And then she was like, okay, well, I don't think you knew this, but, and told me this whole thing. And we were on the phone for 2 hours and we cried and we talked. And then I went down and saw her not too long ago. And I mean, we immediately sat down and there was no surface level. We just immediately got into it. And so our friendship has really grown. And I look up to her, one, because she's a little bit older than me. So I've always done it since high school. But also her ability to go through the things that she's going through, because she's got a lot going on personally and relationship wise and all this. But we've just been able to reconnect in such a level to have that history of each other, but also have no judgment. Because, I mean, she's seen me since I was, 14, 15? I mean, so she's seen some ugly parts of Kasey Long, but also the great parts of me too. And we're still friends and there's never been judgment. And so I really love that about her. And then I think, if you're looking in the community, so that was Beth for me, if I'm looking in the community. And then if I'm looking professionally, the person that I look up to professionally, and I really haven't explored this, so this will be left field if she were to listen to this podcast, Leslie Annan at WT. Man, that woman is amazing. And I shut my mouth when she talks because the way she speaks and presents herself, the words she uses are with such care, but then also you can break that down with her too, that barrier, and just get on a level. And we've gotten on that level a few times, and she's so great at what she does. To be able to have her mentor me through development would be ideal.
I can echo that because I remember the first time I met Leslie and I thought, oh, I'm intimidated. I'm so intimidated by her professionally. We co-chaired National Philanthropy Day together. And I got to know her a little bit more. And I thought, wow, she's a really amazing woman. And so I agree with that. I can echo that for sure.
She's amazing.
Leslie, we love you.
We love you so much. Be our friends.
Well, thank you again for being here and for opening up. I'm so glad that we had you on today.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate being here. It was so fun to be asked, really. And go find yourself a book, people. And if you need a recommendation, let me know.
Okay, quick plug about Junior Achievement.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to talk a little bit about that and where people can learn more.
So Junior Achievement is a nonprofit. The interesting thing, it started in 1919 with the guy that was CEO of a company that became Southwestern Bell, that became AT&T. And it was an after-school program to teach students about financial education. And then the Great Depression happened. And all of these people realized, I've got little money and I need to know what to do with it. So parents started attending these after-school programs during the Great Depression. Fast forward to 1975, and it became in classroom programs. It moved out of an after school and into the schools. And it's been here in Amarillo since 2014. A banker got with AISD and said, I found this organization. I think this would be great for our students. So they started it. They go into 5th grade, 7th grade, and seniors and teach either financial education, work and career readiness. So talking about career mapping. What do you like? What are your interests now? And these are jobs someday that maybe you could go into, right? Financial education is budgeting, wants versus needs, credit cards, credit scores. And then we have this new awesome program called BizTown, and it's for 5th graders, and it teaches them how a healthy economy runs. So they have a job and they have a debit card and they have to write a check and they deposit the check, and then they can go around and shop all of the stuff that they either made or they're selling so that their company can pay off their business loan. So the opportunity to teach students this type of stuff in school is so important, because you hear that all the time. You hear, what are we teaching our students? They're coming out and they don't know how to do their taxes. I mean, Junior Team is not teaching taxes. Maybe they could, but it's just a really cool opportunity to provide that, because I needed more of that. I had no financial education when I left school, and I made some poor choices because of that. So also, they've been nominated for 3 Nobel Peace Prize. They're in 100 countries. And so all 50 states and 100 countries. So they're doing some great work.
Yeah, it's an amazing program. I love that we teach kids different ways to build credit, because that is so important, especially in some of these populations where they aren't going to get that information.
Mm-hmm.
They might be the first generation in their family to either attend college or get a well-paying job. And so I love that Junior Achievement has programs in place where we're giving kids access to that information, regardless of where you come from and what your parents know.
Mm-hmm. Because every single person has to have finances.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm so glad that we got to have Kasey on and talk about networking and connection. It wraps back into the overall vision and mission for this podcast. And so if you've enjoyed today's episode and want to hear from more amazing women in our community, definitely like, comment, subscribe, and share with a woman who influences you. And until next time, stay strong, stay connected, and keep growing.